Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm your host Surya Pastricha, and in today's video we are going to talk to Major Vandana Sharma, who is an ex-Indian Army officer, a career coach and a TEDx speaker. Major Vandana is also the LinkedIn Top Voices India for 2019 and has been awarded a Women Icon Asia Pacific by BERG Singapore. She is also the co-founder of STREE, an online platform empowering women, especially built for women entrepreneurs. STREE is not only a platform where you learn and shop from women entrepreneurs from all across the globe, but is also a life-changing opportunity for women to showcase their skill sets and thus feel empowered. What's special about this video is not only that Major Vandana talks about her experiences while serving in the army, but she also talks about startups, women empowerment, and how you can be a good leader, especially in difficult and challenging situations. This video is truly going to be life-changing for you, and I promise you that you will get to learn a great deal from this one. So without any further ado, let's just jump right in and hear out from Major Vandana. Welcome to the podcast, Major Vandana. Thank you so much for joining us. It is really a pleasure hosting you today.
Thank you so much, Surya. Lovely being here.
To start off with, you have served in the army and have done a bunch of other tremendous things like giving a TEDx talk and starting your own venture. But while reflecting upon your career and your journey with the armed forces, how did it all start? Like, did you always wanted to join the army since your childhood? And how was that military experience for you?
Okay, so I guess this is the most favorite thing that people ask me. So I'd say, I'll be honest, I think uniform was my first love. And that was because I was born and raised in a family of, armed forces. My grandfather was with the army, father was with the Air Force. So when you wake up, you are born, you see uniform around you and such inspiring people, that's what you dream of, right? So I always wished that women could fly planes, women could be, officers like men. But that wasn't the case when I was small, but I definitely wished for it. And thankfully, by the time I came to college, the government started the scheme. So honestly, I didn't have to think twice about what career I want. That was my first choice. So I completely went all in and applied for Officers Training Academy, which is in Chennai, and that's where the women train along with short service commissioned officers. And I made it in my first attempt at the service selection board. So I got my dream job in my first ever interview. So it was like I said, dream come true. And besides that, a huge element of pride, because serving the nation and giving your best, what could be better than that? So that was a career which brought a lot of satisfaction, a lot of learning, and also from the perspective of staying with parents and traveling all over the country, seeing beautiful places. That was something that was part of my persona. So it continued, because as an officer, I actually served in almost all parts of the country in my 10-year stint, north, south, east, west, and got to see the best of beauty within the country. So from a travel point of view also, it was great. And from a leadership point of view, managing people in the most difficult situations. Now people are talking about VUCA environment and managing chaos because we are in the middle of a pandemic. I guess a soldier learns the day you wear a uniform, because you're trained to handle chaos. And I was privileged to be posted in Ladakh during the Kargil War. So I actually got to be part of the only war that happened in my tenure, with the forces. So that's an experience that no theory, no book, no experiences from others can teach. You have to learn that by yourself. So I guess tremendous amount of learnings. Whatever I am today, it's majorly, uh, you know, what I gained as part of being with the armed forces for a decade. So great experience, loved it.
Yeah, I absolutely, and I can imagine, the tremendous amount of learnings which you were talking about just now, and which you must have gained from serving in the army. Essentially, since when you are in the army, you get transferred to sometimes beautiful places and sometimes not so beautiful places.
Yeah,
Yes.
so true, so true.
Yeah, and that ultimately, exposes you to so many different cultures and so many different people. So,
I think I'll just, a beautiful point you raised about, learning to be flexible, because there are times when you are actually in paradise, and then times when you are actually in hell, in the sense, lack of infrastructure and resources, and you just have to make do with whatever you have. But it's a huge learning, because you learn to manage with almost nothing and still get through your situations. And yes, other times you actually learn to manage effectively, even if you have a lot, or you're in places where you are able to take larger decisions with more number of resources and everything. So I agree with you. I guess that's one of the lessons, in managing and being flexible. Very, very vital.
yeah, and also, I mean, there is this, beautiful concept of buddy pays in the armed forces, which I absolutely admire, which is, basically while going to war or conducting an operation, troops are, divided into pairs of two. And if one falls down, the other personnel is supposed to take over. And it is just quite like overcoming the weaknesses of other person and converting it to the pair strengths. So,
Absolutely.
can you tell us a bit about the learnings which you had with the buddy pair system, if you had that kind of experience?
So, Surya, we learned this right in the academy during the training days, and you get your buddy in the academy itself. So while you are a cadet, that's when you come across your first buddy, and they remain buddies for life. My buddy from army days is still my best friend after 24, 25 years. So that's a friendship that you make in those formative days, and it lasts you a lifetime. And you'll hear this from any soldier. Anybody who's worn a uniform would swear by it, that your course mates, your company people, your unit people, they become your family more than your real relatives and real blood. So that was definitely the first thing. And the other thing that I think I significantly remember and learned was the strategy of cover and move. So that remains my favorite till date. In any project, any life situation, I always believe that things are done best in partnership. And when you have a partner, you both have to cover and move. By that, what I mean is, there are bad times when you need to cover for your buddy, and then there are others when the buddy covers for you. So you protect each other, and that happens when you're advancing for any kind of offense that you're launching. So when your buddy is moving forward, you cover with a weapon. You make sure that no firing comes on your buddy, so you protect the buddy. And then when you go forward, the buddy supports you. So that's something that you learn with the forces, and that's something that needs to be done in any relationship, whether it's work or your personal relationships. That is the most beautiful thing, I guess, that one learns as part of the buddy system. Everything else, of course, you grow together, you learn lessons together, you give critical feedbacks to each other, you appreciate each other. So they are almost like the family that comes to you because you've been part of the military.
Yeah, and also, this reminds me of a very beautiful quote by Sun Tzu, the Chinese philosopher.
Yeah.
To know your enemy, you must become your enemy, which, essentially means to introspect and identify your own weaknesses so that, your enemy can't take advantage of those and defeat you.
So true, so true. On that note, I'll also tell you something that my mom always talked about, and I think it's very relevant for being a soldier also, which is about nindak nede rakhiye, which that means is, hold your critics close to you. So critique need not necessarily mean an enemy. It could be somebody who's a well-wisher, but it could also be an enemy or somebody who hates you, because when you learn about your flaws is when you can improve. So never get perturbed with a negative situation or a difficult circumstances or somebody who doesn't like you so much. I guess criticism should be welcome, because that's how you identify and that's how you can cover your issues and grow. So I agree with you.
It is essentially like learning should never stop, and you should always constantly keep on learning something or the other.
Totally, totally. That's the
And
only way to move forward.
yeah, and this pandemic has taught us just that, especially the students. Like I myself, I'm in my third year of college, the final year. So it has, really taught me to. I mean, I just started this podcast. I never thought I would start a podcast. So this is a new learning for me. So
Absolutely.
yeah, and that's really wonderful. And now coming on to your corporate career, how did it unfold, and is it a different ball game altogether from a managerial point of view?
I'd say some parts are very similar and some parts definitely are different. The parts that are similar, I'll talk about first, and then I'll talk about what's different. The parts that are similar are, people are the same everywhere. The leadership skills that are required are typically the same, because the psyche or, the motivators for anybody remain the same. All humans enjoy being admired, recognized, nurtured, taken care of. So those are some of the things that each one of us, whether they are in the military or in the corporate world, you seek. The parts which are different are, the armed forces, by the nature of job, it's hierarchy driven. So everything is top down, which is not the case with the corporations. There, it's a matrix sort of organizations. It's a flat, no hierarchy. So one needs to get used to a very different style of leadership and management style. So there's a need to be flexible and learn and adapt to a new environment. The other thing which is different is corporations run on the sole purpose of ROI and profitability, return on investment. While in the forces, you're never taught to look at anything as an investment or profitability. It's about doing the best to protect your country in case of an aggression or any situation, right? So a soldier is trained differently. The mindset with which you learn to lead is, with unconditional and completely being loyal to the country and not asking any questions and things like that. So when you go to a corporate setup, you realize that it's a lot to do with the resources, and everything revolves around finances, and that hits you hard because you've not learned that one skill. So that's one thing that a soldier, when they move from forces career to the corporate career, that's one thing that is very important to know and prepare for when you transition. So these are some of the very, very basic fundamentals. There are several more, but I guess these were the things that I definitely very distinctly remember as being a stark contrast. And otherwise, I think it was lots of fun. A lot of things that I learned while I was with the army were very relevant while I was with the corporates also. The ability to think on feet, managing chaos, managing with almost zero resources, still being on time, still meeting the deadlines, still being effective, leading with, being with the, being on the front always. And that, I guess, motivates people everywhere, any team, anywhere. When you see that your leader is actually leading by example, it can't get better than that. So those are some of the things that were very exciting. And yes, it's been a journey. It's been almost 24 years now, 10 years with the army, and then 10 years with the corporate, and 4 years of my own practice. Um, beautiful time. I guess each career brought its own learning. So it's been fun.
So essentially, whichever career you choose to go into, you need to learn from scratch and you constantly need to upskill yourself. And
Yes, yes. I guess so. On that note, I would tell you one thing that I guess, when you transition out from any career to any career, not just from the armed forces to corporate, there is a lot of unlearning that you need to do. We all think that I have so much experience, so I know everything. But what happens is the context has changed, the dynamics have changed, the world in which you are entering is completely new. So there's so much of unlearning that is needed, and you have to start from a clean board. You have to forget about everything you knew and come with a beginner mindset, come with a thought that I need to grow, I need to learn and uh, rise up again. So there's lots that's needed to be learned. So continuous learning is the way forward, no matter where, whichever career. I guess as a student also that applies, and in life also it applies. It's the same thing.
that's really a beautiful way to look at it. And also, I was recently watching your TEDx talk regarding how life should be an epitaph and not a resume. And it really struck. Uh, it made me think that how we as individuals always run after building our CVs and making them the best. But on one end, we tend to forget that, the true meaning of life, which is to stay true to yourself and to work on what you love to do, and most importantly to enjoy life. And this pandemic has some way taught us just that life is too short to worry and one should live it to the fullest. So thank you so much for delivering that TED talk, because it was really powerful and inspirational for me.
Such a pleasure. And I wanted to make it a point because I was invited to this particular TEDx. I have done three others besides this one, but this was at IIM Lucknow. And I had gone to IIM Lucknow after transitioning from the army to learn about business. So that was a new beginning for me. And I was a student again after, a career and beginning my career journey with the corporates after that. So for me, talking to students, actually, I wanted to give a message, and that's where I wanted to make it a point that whoever was there in that room or anybody who's seen that conversation, they should always remember that life is so much bigger than chasing careers and just chasing money, because there's limited time. I guess time is a bigger and more valuable resource than money. Money can come and go, time never will, and we only grow once. You can't become a child again, you can't become a youth again. So whatever you have at that point in time, one has to value, one has to learn. And for me that happened very early, because when I saw the war, and I did spend time in Kargil, and my death near death experience I would say was when I faced the artillery shelling for the first time. When the shell sort of crosses you and falls somewhere, you realize, oh, you're safe. So that's the moment when you realize that life is so fragile, and probably you would not be there next second. So that's when you start reflecting and thinking back, and you say that if I'm going to survive, I'm going to make the most of this life because it's so precious. So that was a moment which I always cherish, and I guess that was the biggest learning of life. So I ensured that every day I spent like is the best day of my life, and whatever was possible within the scope of things that I were dealing with. I guess that's the learning that one takes with you. And pandemic has taught that lesson to the entire humanity, I'd say now, because we are struggling with an enemy similar to a war situation. And that's when we realize that life is so precious, it's fragile. The ultimate truth is you have to love your family and be with them, because they are the ones who are there for you. Jobs can replace you, but you will always remain very precious to your family. So these are some of the things which are very, very beautiful and hard learnings that come with experiences and circumstances.
Yeah, I mean, this pandemic has taught the human race a lot, especially people, started to exercise during this pandemic, because earlier they used to just sit on the couches and then just scroll through their mobile phones. But now they are, more health conscious thanks to the pandemic.
Scroll and troll. I guess the worst was scrolling and trolling. There was nothing positive. I don't know how many people seek positive media. Everybody is just out there to get the others, and there's so much of sarcasm and negativity and criticism. So I guess it was just going in a very, very detrimental way. And if you want to grow, if you want to learn, one has to stay focused on the positives despite any kind of situation. So those are the learnings that have come out of pandemic. Now there's so much of negativity and so much of pain, and it's shared pain. Each one across the world is going through the same thing. It's not like the previous issues where Ebola is in Africa, or SARS is somewhere, or stuff like that. Now COVID is worldwide. So now that the first world, the third world, everybody is in it together, similar situations, and problems have been the same. I guess people have loved, the time that they got forced, though, but the time they got at homes with families, and being almost forced to stay home and not keep running like a guinea pig on a wheel. So it gives you a lot of time to reflect. So a lot of good learnings have come out of this experience, though whatever is happening is definitely dark, and I pray it gets over soon. But yes, I completely agree with you. There are lessons that I hope this generation and the next never forgets.
On the bright side of it, I mean, I love to stay at home because I can do whatever I want. I mean, I can just attend my college classes, and apart from that, I can also do a lot of courses, and I can also do other stuff like talking to you right now on this podcast. So that is essentially what was missing from back from my college days. And when I used to go to college, I couldn't find time to do my own stuff. So I'm blessed to on the bright side of it, I'm blessed to have this pandemic.
Also, I'll add to that the world has become even smaller. They used to say the world is flat now, this, that, but I guess the world has become so much smaller because across geographies, people are on screen and doing calls. And believe me, I mean, there are classmates of mine that we had not spoken to for 20 years, 25 years, but now there are Zoom calls or, video calls happening with friends that we had completely, not spoken or seen each other. But I guess in a lot of ways in the virtual world we did come together, and that is also a huge thing. Also from a business point of view, the virtual meetings, the virtual businesses have gained so much of acceptance, which was not there earlier. Like I was a digital nomad for last couple of years, but when I would tell them that I'm sitting in Haridwar and I want to have a meeting, it was difficult because people would want you in Bangalore and in their office to have a conversation. So that used to become a limitation. But after 2020, nobody cares where you are. In fact, people are now sitting in Manali and Goa and anywhere across the world, and you can have your meeting. So there are tons of pluses, I would say, technology. And the best thing is, while we are at home and we are told to stay home, there's internet. So information is at your fingertips. You can learn anything you want. The kind of time we have today, I myself, forget last year's lockdown, in this year's lockdowns, in the last couple of weeks, and a little before, I have started so many new things. So it's a huge learning. I guess I'm very happy that I never had this kind of time in the past.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's the same with you.
Yeah, it is the same with me. I mean, I learned a lot during this pandemic. I did a lot of courses. I talked to so many people from across the world. So yeah, it has been really a fruitful experience for me as well. And
Absolutely.
and we as people have just started to realize the power of internet and what internet can do to change our lives. So that's
Totally.
really amazing.
The influence you can have worldwide, that was something which was unheard of, unknown. But because of the power of internet, your if whatever your cause and it is genuine, in days you can become popular worldwide. Nobody had that sort of reach in the past. So it's actually a very powerful time that we are living in.
definitely. And turning onto your consulting career and then talking about your ventures three. As Steve Jobs famously said, you can't connect the dots looking forward and you can only connect them looking backwards. So, did you see the dots connecting throughout the different careers you have had so far? And how was it like?
So I'll be honest, I guess I was a little bit reckless and random from the beginning as a child. I mean, I definitely knew that I wanted to join forces, and that was a great career because my heroes were, flying, pilots and people like that. So I definitely wanted to do that. The reason I moved to a corporate career was the limited career that armed forces gave to women at that point in time in India, because there was no permanent commission. And for me, it was the end of the road as far as my career with the forces was concerned. So I definitely didn't want to sit home and waste my potential. I definitely knew that I have a lot in me and I wanted to lead and in a career where people know that I'm a capable person. So that's why I made the transition to my second career. When I moved to consulting was out of passion because I had worked with startups from 2012 onwards, and I worked with some very very exciting people who were actually making a dent and creating so many opportunities. E-commerce was booming. The speed of change was so refreshing. There was so much I learned being part of startups. So I definitely thought that the way I could contribute to the country with the armed forces, uh, as an entrepreneur, you can do equally, perhaps a lot more also, because you're free. You have the capability to take decisions yourself. You can create jobs. You can impact people with your experiences. So that's where I thought mentoring and consulting would come in and help a lot of people who did not have experiences. And I also learned the harder way. There was so many things that I didn't know, but I experimented. I took risks. Some failed, some bombed, some did really well. So I wanted to help people out. So from that point of view, I decided to move into it. The only common thread I'd say, Surya, is the fact that as a woman, I always was very passionate about the cause of empowering girls. And that came from my childhood because my mother came from one of the villages in UP, and she was definite that daughters have to study, because when girls are empowered, they can actually look after their families and be financially independent. So she was very very sure that all of us got the same education as my brother, and that made all the difference. So I actually saw a phase in my life when I was a teenager, and I heard people saying, girls should get married off, and my parents put up that resistance to say, no, we want to educate our daughters. And that made all the difference. So I definitely know that in the society or in the north or a lot of conservative families, a lot of girls are still going through the same thing. So if they see more heroes or more people who are able to support them, nurture them, guide them, and create forums where they say, oh, look at her, when she could do it, I can also do it. So I wanted to be that sort of influence and inspiration to as many people as I could. So that's something that continued from the army to the corporate career to being an entrepreneur, and even in my personal space. So that's something that continued to be there. And in the lockdowns, my friend who founded STREE and I, when we got together, we thought about this as an opportunity because of a couple of things. Because of the workload at home, a lot of women quit their corporate careers or entrepreneurial careers, which were in the offline world, because they had to manage little children, their education. They were primary caregivers for elders in the family. They had to juggle with everything in the house, plus deliver the goods at work also. So a lot of women actually gave up their jobs. There were others who were forced to shut their practices because the offline world suddenly came to a halt and everybody had to be indoors, and they were looking for online avenues. There were others who were looking for income on the side, because if the your significant other lost a job, you wanted to contribute in some way. So there were so many reasons and so many people we knew out there who needed another channel to, build their own capabilities. And this seemed like the best time to create a community, a forum, and a tech space where women can share any skills that they might have. It could be, simple things like whatever is there, learning your education, or a language, or a dance form, or sculpting or painting, and you name it. It could be, coaching, career counseling. It could be 100 things. So those were the reasons where we thought we need to create STREE, and it came into existence around the same time last year. And I believe it's a great thing because it's given a lot of people the opportunity to learn how the online world operates, how to deliver, and their customer reach is now across the geographies, across time zones. Your own experience of creating your personal brand, your own experience of being an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, with a team that can back you up with all the resources, which otherwise you have to grapple with, and the learning curve becomes bigger. So there's so many things which were possible. So that's when I thought this would be a great place to get started, and that's how this venture happened.
Yeah, I mean, and how difficult was it to, manage different customer segments in different geographies? Because especially in times like these, the voice of the customer has, has become really important. And if you don't pay heed to your customers' concerns, you won't be able to, take your organization to a long extent, and you won't be able to sustain it in the long run. So, how did you manage that during this pandemic?
I guess that's a learning curve for any startup, and we are really young. 1 year journey has only been learning. It's only been feedbacks, tremendous amount of feedbacks, and every day the conversations have been how to improve the platform. Because a tech-driven platform, especially a video platform, it's about the bandwidth and reception, and everybody cannot have the same internet strength. So there are people who are logging in from class B, class C cities, and consumers need to be able to hear you equally well. The capacity should be enough for them to kind of deliver without any interruption. So there were a lot of things around technology that we were struggling with. Some of the bugs have been fixed, some as time goes by, and then like any venture, we had to sort of continue to prioritize and say what is it that we do first and what is it that we do later. So I guess the learning continues. The intent is right, and we know that over time this will become a valued proposition, because we are able to provide education to people, which was not possible perhaps without the platform. And identity and space in the online world, and the personal brand, which was not possible if somebody starts by themselves, say on a YouTube channel or Instagram or Facebook, which will take its own time to grow a followership and things like that. So a lot of positives, a lot of value, because this is the only women's platform. So that gave it a significant identity, because otherwise women are competing in a common space. So a lot of times the gender gets drowned. So here, you're cutting out the competition by 100%, and it's more like a community of sisters. So you learn and grow from each other. So and learn from each other. So I guess uh, lots of things. I guess that would be another session.
Yeah, and I mean, it's really inspiring for the work you're doing at STREE. And I mean, the thought regarding supporting any particular section of the society in itself is really powerful, in the sense that not only it uplifts the society as a whole, but also the neighboring communities, families, and generations to come. So that's
But the thing is, Surya, it seems like a good cause to fight for, but often people have come back to us and said, why do you want an exclusive platform for women? Why don't you make it equal for everyone? Because you are cutting down the market by half. You are cutting down on partners if you are not taking male partners. So that's another perspective. But then we feel that there are enough platforms which are providing that opportunity in any case. And we wanted to stay committed to the cause of women, which is why we chose to stay as a women's platform.
That's really inspiring. And also, what would be your advice to the young entrepreneurs, students, or people who are, just starting off with their careers? And also, if you could share any book recommendations.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, see, the thing is, like you said, you've watched that TEDx, which talks about building an epitaph and not a resume. That's my number one learning that I give to any 20-year-old or 22-year-old, because I feel that this is the time when you have a life ahead of you. You can make number of mistakes, you can recover from them. You can also identify and learn about your strengths. You can play to your strengths. So no, shouldn't be scared. You should not worry about going wrong, or what society will say, or what anybody else will say. One should live fully, take risks, whether it's professional or personal. And while I say that, I definitely want to add that one thing that we learn in the military, which is about Josh with Hosh. Josh अच्छी बात होती है, but then you have to have your sensibilities about it. If your risk is affecting your family, or you are burning your parents' money, or doing something as reckless which will have long-term effect on everybody around you, then I think it's not worth it. You should do stuff which you can soak on your own and learn. So I think that's something that I definitely want to tell everybody, that you need to take risks, you need to follow your passion, but identify what you're good at. I may think I'm fantastic as a dancer, but the truth is I may not be. So that cannot, shouldn't be in a fool's paradise. You must know what you're good at. You should be able to leverage them, and only then you will succeed. So those are some of the things that I have also learned, and I definitely want to tell everybody. The other would be to get mentors in the fields that you're good at, or the fields that you aspire to grow in, because that's the sharpest and the fastest way of growing without making mistakes. You can learn from someone else's experiences. And no, having mentors doesn't mean you have to have one mentor or two mentors. You can have five mentors in different spheres, one in life, one about finances, one about a career passion. Could be so many things. Hobbies. So I guess it's important to have many mentors or influencers who are positive influence on your life, and that really helps. The last one, as you asked about books, so I love reading, and I guess the one that I always recommend to people is 80-20 principle, because that talks about leveraging the best, identifying the 20% which is good, and then applying it to different parts of your life. And if you learn that, it's again, it gets into everything from time management to resource management to being effective to your relationships. So there's so many things. So that's one book which is really my favorite, though there are so many others now. But that's something I really love. I am also reading this book right now, which is again a very cliched and old one by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. But I was intrigued, I was curious, because people talked about it, and it talks about the power of manifestation and thinking, how one idea, one thought can actually change your life. So it's interesting, I guess. Once I'm done with it, maybe there are learnings and that I might be able to apply somewhere. So yeah, so I guess 80-20 principle would be a good book to read. The third one, I guess, there are so many. I will start giving you a long list. So I think I'll just limit it to 80-20 principle for this time. Maybe next time I'll cover some more on, book readings.
Definitely. And that's really helpful and practical advice, to the sense that whatever you told us is really, we can really apply that in real life. Yeah. And thank you so much for that. And, this unfortunately brings us to the end of this podcast. Thank you so much, Major Vandana, for sharing your valuable insights and experience with us. And I'm sure that a lot of our listeners would have learned a lot from today's episode. Thanks once again and best of luck for STREE.
Thank you, Surya. I hope whatever little I've learned is useful to everyone. Um, I guess what we discussed throughout the podcast, it's important to have a learning mindset and continue to grow. I guess that's one thing that I'd say. Live each day holistically, live free, and whatever the Almighty has given, make the best use of that. So keep growing, keep up the good work. I'm sure the podcast will bring a lot of interesting people to your series, and there will be significant learnings for everyone who logs in and catches people here. So take care, all the very best. Thank you guys, lovely being here. God bless.
Thanks a lot, ma'am. Thank you so
See you. Bye.